Passive income is a lie, or at least the version you've been sold is a complete fabrication. You've been told to buy fractional dividend stocks, start a low-effort dropshipping store, or launch a faceless channel while money magically prints itself on a beach somewhere. It's garbage. What the gurus deliberately hide from you is that to escape the 9-to-5 matrix, you don't need passive income. You need front-loaded leverage. I went from a burned-out junior programmer writing useless code 60 hours a week for a corporation that didn't even spell my name right on my ID badge to hitting a 7-figure net worth before my 28th birthday. I didn't do it by waking up at 4 a.m. to take ice baths, and I definitely didn't do it by saving 10% of my paycheck. I did it by ruthlessly building digital assets, failing aggressively, having my most profitable idea hijacked by my closest friend, and eventually engineering systems that operated at scale while I slept. By the end of this video, you're going to realize why your current job is mathematically designed to keep you trapped, exactly how to build the leverage to break out, and why I now legally own the web domain of the corporate giant that once treated me like a disposable typing monkey. Let me take you back to before the millions, before the servers, and before the leverage. I was always obsessed with the mechanics of money. Back in high school, my first real hustle wasn't mowing lawns, it was coding and selling custom Notion templates and digital organizational dashboards to stressed-out college students on Reddit. I was grinding every night, offering what I thought was an absolute steal, a bundle of 20 different productivity templates for just $5. I messaged hundreds of people. The result? Absolute silence. Nobody wanted them. I was forced to step back and completely rewrite my understanding of perceived value. I deleted the bundle, took my best template, rebranded it as an elite academic operating system, and priced it at $49. I was terrified, but the result shocked me. I sold out my server bandwidth in a weekend. People don't want cheap. They want a premium solution to a painful problem. If you take one thing away from my early years, it's this. Mastering the psychology of pricing and digital sales is the ultimate cheat code. Without that baseline, no product will save you. But society has a funny way of drilling conformity into your skull. When I graduated, I bought into the ultimate trap, the safe career path. I wanted to be a software engineer. I thought landing a job at a massive tech conglomerate was my ticket to the top. I walked into that sleek, glass-walled office on day one, thinking I was going to build revolutionary infrastructure. Instead, for 8 agonizing months, my manager assigned me to A/B test the hex color codes on email marketing footers. I had spent years learning complex algorithms only to be reduced to a human spell checker. I looked around the open plan office and saw guys 10 years older than me, balding, stressed, doing the exact same repetitive tasks. I realized right then, standing next to the office espresso machine, a 9-to-5 is just a subscription model for your survival. The pay was enough to keep me from starving, but just low enough to keep me from escaping. I was totally paralyzed, trading the only non-renewable resource I had, my time, for heavily taxed dollars. I needed an exit velocity. I started flipping neglected digital assets on the weekends. I would hunt down abandoned micro SaaS projects and expired premium domain names, fix their UI, optimize their SEO, and flip them for a $1,000 to $2,000 profit. It wasn't life-changing money, but it built my emergency runway, and that runway is everything. Living paycheck to paycheck strips you of your peripheral vision. You are so hyper-focused on surviving the month that million-dollar opportunities pass right by you. The real turning point hit me during a freelance gig. I was hired to remotely configure a private server for a wealthy digital nomad living in a villa in Bali. I spent 3 days digging through his back-end code and realized something that shattered my worldview. His software was generating over $60,000 a month. He had 0 employees, 0 physical inventory, and he was spending his Tuesdays surfing. He wasn't 10 times smarter than me, and he definitely wasn't working 10 times harder. He just understood leverage. He built the machine once, and the code did the heavy lifting an infinite number of times. That was the moment I stopped looking for passive income and started chasing front-loaded leverage. I immediately began coding my own project, an AI-driven automated client onboarding tool for freelance agencies. I knew the market, I knew the code, and I knew it could run entirely without me once deployed. I was so hyped that I made the rookie mistake of explaining my entire roadmap, back-end logic, and go-to-market strategy to my buddy at the office. 3 months later, I was preparing for launch, but he beat me to it. He had essentially reverse-engineered my exact pitch, hired a cheap dev team overseas to rush a buggy version, and launched it under his own brand. Watching someone else monetize your exact blueprint while you're still stuck taking orders from a middle manager is a psychological torture I wouldn't wish on anyone. But it taught me the most brutal rule of entrepreneurship: execute in the shadows. Talk is a liability. Until your product is locked, deployed, and defended, keep your mouth shut. I could have quit. Instead, I went absolutely scorched earth. I worked 18-hour days, hoarding every dollar from my job and side flips, building an impenetrable credit history. I knew his rushed product would eventually collapse under technical debt, and I was right. 9 months later, his software was bleeding users due to massive security bugs, and he hated the stress of running it. I stepped in and offered to buy the IP and his remaining user base for pennies on the dollar. But I still needed server capital to scale it properly. I took my airtight business plan and pitched it to 5 different venture capital firms. They laughed me out of the room. I had no Stanford degree and no pedigree. I was crushed. But momentum favors the relentless. I scraped the emails of 50 angel investors and cold-pitched them a brutal, unfiltered video breakdown of how I was going to fix the code and monopolize the niche. One guy replied. We hopped on a call, and within 20 minutes, he wired the seed money. He told me later it wasn't the projected ARR that convinced him. It was the cold, unhinged obsession in my voice. Preparation meeting opportunity isn't luck. It's a mathematical inevitability. I took over the software, rebuilt the architecture, and launched it. Within 2 years, we were doing $1.5 million in annual recurring revenue. The leverage was working. But here is where most people lose their empires: complacency. I was relying entirely on a B2C model, selling to individual freelancers. Then, the AI disruption hit. Massive language models were released, and suddenly, my software was at risk of becoming completely obsolete overnight. Everyone in my space panicked. But while they saw an executioner, I saw an API. I knew I had to pivot from B2C to enterprise B2B, and I needed an exclusive integration partner. I didn't send an email. I packed a bag, flew 14 hours to an underground developer summit in Tallinn, Estonia, completely uninvited. I didn't even have a hotel booked. I slept in a hostel lobby on my laptop bag. I tracked down the lead engineer of a massive AI infrastructure firm at an after-party, pitched him my enterprise integration over a terrible cup of coffee, and shook hands on a beta access partnership before my competitors even realized the landscape had changed. That ruthless pivot is why my holding company generates multiple 7 figures today, completely decoupled from my daily time. Society tells you that quitting your job and building an asset is risky. That is a fundamental lie. The highest risk play you can possibly make in today's economy is relying on a single source of income that is capped by your time, dictated by a boss, and vulnerable to being replaced by a line of code. The barriers to entry have never been this aggressively low. You don't need permission, you don't need a degree, and you don't need funding. You just need a laptop, an internet connection, and the refusal to be average. Start building your front-loaded leverage today. Find a system you can build once and sell infinitely. And remember that tech conglomerate I worked for? The one that had me testing email colors? 2 years ago, they went through a massive restructuring and let their original domain name expire by accident. I bought it instantly. Now, it redirects straight to the landing page of my flagship product. If you want to stop trading your time for pennies and actually learn how to engineer wealth, hit that subscribe button right now. Your future self is waiting for you to make a move. I'll see you in the next one.